All right, so we are back, we are rocking, and we have an awesome presentation coming up for you. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Obi Ogbanufe. I met her in San Diego just earlier this year because, as you all know, I'm the chief strategist of Enrollify. Can we give it up for a second for our Enrollify creators who are in the house? There are a lot of you sitting in these. I see you all. All right, love it. So I just very randomly emailed Obi, and I was like, hey, you do cool things, and I'd like to interview you on my little podcast. And she was like, yes, let's go. And I'm not just saying this because she's standing right there, but like it was one of my favorite interviews of the entire ASU GSV Summit. I highly recommend, it's on Higher Ed Pulse, you can listen to it, it's about 10 minutes long. I mean, after this session, you might not need to, it's about ethics of AI. But it was an excellent interview, and so within a couple weeks, I was like, okay, I need a couple more speakers for this little Engage Summit, and maybe I can snag Obi for this. And she so graciously said yes. So let me tell you a little bit about her before I bring her up on this stage. Obi is a professor at University of North Texas. She is the assistant professor of information technology and decision sciences. She is certainly an expert when it comes to the ethics of AI. She teaches classes on this, so we're about to get schooled, y'all. Obi is a researcher, educator. She teaches not just ethics, but she teaches about data mining, cybersecurity, predictive analytics, data warehousing courses. That sounds fascinating. And her research includes behavioral security, cybercrime, ethics of AI, and risk management. So if you see her around later, there's obviously a lot more to talk to her about. But let's put our hands together. Without further ado, come on up, Obi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So this is an honor to be speaking here today. Thank you, Laurie and Jamie. Your presentations were off the chart. I go to these. This is my second event this week, well, from last week to this week. And I can tell you I learn new things every conference that I go to, AI conference that I go to. So today I'll be talking about AI ethics, our collective role in making AI use trustworthy. We all have a role to play in making AI trustworthy, okay? So the premise behind that is that we know that AI, some parts of it, is broken, right? And that it can cause harm. And that secondly, that we know what to do to prevent it or to mitigate some of the harm that it can cause. So what I'm gonna do in the next 28 minutes or so is to unpack that, to explore that aspect of how we can help to make AI more trustworthy. All right, so before I do that, I know Mallory already talked about some of my experiences and what I do, but I want to tell you a little bit about my journey to doing or being or talking about and researching AI ethics. So it started after I became a freshly minted assistant professor. My first job was in Oklahoma State University. I don't know, some of you know Stillwater, it's, Oklahoma, nobody? Only one person? Oh, wonderful. So I moved there and my first class was predictive analytics. And as I was getting ready for the class and teaching the class, it became very obvious to me that something was missing in my preparation. So the tools that I use in my research, they're all predictive analytics. We use AI to do the work that we do, whether it is starting from regression, decision trees, neural nets, and all of that. But the more I got into teaching, it became evident that we needed to teach students not just the tools, but to teach them how the tools could also be used for nefarious reasons. And so that's how I started to integrate, okay, these are aspects of the tools that students need to learn how to use. And of course, researchers have been talking about AI ethics for decades, right? Researchers in NYU, I heard you, Laurie, talk about NYU. I think her name is Crawford is her last name. I go, when you read research papers, I just remember the last name. I don't remember the first names, but I think her first name may be Catherine. But so there have been researchers who have been doing this for decades, right? And so we all agree, and we've heard in this summit, that AI can do a lot of wonderful things, right? From healthcare to education, customer service, entertainment, hiring, recruitment, law enforcement. It can do wonderful things. It can increase productivity, effectiveness, efficiencies in so many places. But it could also cause harm. It could also lead to devastating impacts to people's lives and livelihood. So these are just some examples, and you might already be familiar with some of these examples, and there are thousands of those out there, right? If you do a Google search for AI incidents reporting, you will find organizations that their role, all they do is just collect and report and build databases of AI incidences, right? So some examples that I have here, I won't talk about all of them, but some examples that I have here is the one with the research that was done by NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. They did it a few years ago, and they found out that FRTs, which are facial recognition technologies, have significant variations in how it recognizes individuals. And these were based on race and gender. What that means is that the error rates for recognizing race and gender was very high. Even before then, another research that was done at MIT Media Labs also showed that, there was a 34% error rate for identifying darker-skinned females than lighter-skinned men. Okay, 1% misidentification for lighter-skinned men versus 34% misidentification for darker-skinned women. So what does that mean? Let's sit with that for just a few seconds, right? And think about any software you use today that has a 34% error rate. Anytime you pick it up, 34% of the time it breaks, right? Would you be happy with that? So this is what that software, facial recognition, does. Now, of course, there are so many others. Amazon is another one. You probably heard about Amazon in 2018, that they built an AI-based software. And so the AI tool, what happened was that it was trained on data that was biased, right? Data that was biased towards men. So when it went into production, it started preferring men over women for jobs. And luckily, Amazon found out about that on time and had to discontinue the tool, right? And other examples, for example, the one about 3 men who were wrongly arrested, right, because of an AI tool. And there's so many. Again, like I said, if you go online and look for these, you will find organizations that collect and build databases based on that. Okay, so you might be asking, what is an AI ethical issue? So all the things that I've just listed, all the examples that I gave in the previous slide, those are all called AI ethical issues. What is it? It's an AI interaction. So this is a definition by Capgemini. It says AI interaction that results in outcomes that are unexplainable, not transparent, unfair, or biased against a certain group of users. So solving the ethical issues around building an AI tool is not easy. It's very complex. It involves so many aspects. It involves the technical layer, it involves the social layer, it involves the legal layer, right? But it can be solved. I'm not saying, wake up one morning and you solve everything, but it can be solved. There are ways to solve this. So starting, I won't talk about all of them, but starting with the number one, okay? When you look at how AI systems are built, it starts with training the data. You train the data, you use a data set that tells the system, hey, this is what an apple looks like. This is what a person looks like. This is what spam looks like. And this is what spam doesn't look like. So the tool, the model now understands the underlying patterns around what an apple would look like so that when it sees another apple, a new apple picture, it already knows, hey, this is what an apple looks like. So in terms of looking at the social aspects of creating a data set, okay? One thing that organizations do to reduce bias that's social in nature is to ensure that the data represents everyone, okay? Especially the user base, okay? Because if it doesn't, it'll end up in the same way the Amazon tool ended up. Because if majority of the data set includes just one group of people, you'll find out that that's the only group of people that the system favors. Okay, so that's the way AI systems work, and I feel that many of you are familiar with that process. And there's so many other aspects of solving the problem that are available today. So here is a slide describing issues that employees have had. So this here happened in 2023. It's a research or a study that was done by Statista that found that across the board in Germany, United Kingdom, United States, that about 40% of employees encountered one form of ethical issue or the other, right? This is high. This is not users. This is the employees that build the systems that are encountering AI ethical issues in the software that they build. And these are some of the reasons they gave. Okay? Number one is the pressure to build. The pressure to create these tools, these AI tools, is very high. And number two is ethical issues were not even considered at all. Right? The third is there weren't resources to even do the work. The fourth is there weren't diverse teams, okay, that represents gender, that represents race. Okay. The fourth is the lack of AI code of conduct. When there's nothing to say, hey, this is how we build tools, then the people building it don't even know when they've moved away from the ultimate goal. So these are just some of the reasons that employees, AI developers, are saying this is why their AI tools are biased. This is why their AI tools have ethical issues. Now, this is just me using a person, Carol. You're Carol, you're an enrollment manager, or you're just a user, a super user of a tool, an AI-based tool. And you're in a meeting where people are talking about, your coworkers and your designers are talking about building an AI tool. And you want to try to ask questions about that AI tool, but you don't know what to do, okay? In this case, what does Carol do? And Carol can do a whole lot of things, right? But it starts with, if the organization has an AI code of ethics, then at least the conversation starts there, right? If there's a code of ethics that says, this is what's obtainable in our organization, Carol can start there. But otherwise, Carol can start with just identifying that ethics is a moral principle that governs our behaviors. Okay, there's so many different definitions for what ethics is. If you go online, look right now, you see so many definitions. It's a very complex topic, but there are three main categories of ethical theories that organizations use in deciding how they value different things. It's utilitarian ethics, which says, hey, the most good for the most amount of people is what is ethical to us. The second one is deontology, which says, hey, I don't care about consequences. I just care that when something is wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. It doesn't matter who is benefiting from it. It's just wrong is wrong, right is right. And then virtue ethics is about the virtues that we act on, right? Whether we're honest, whether we have integrity, and these things that we practice on a day-to-day basis, right? So when you look at an organization, you will find that to a large extent, they use a combination of these ethical theories in building the value systems that they use, right? Go to any organization that has values, you will see some of these things are embedded in their value systems. Now, AI ethics has so many definitions as well, okay? But the one definition that I really, really like is the one that invites a conversation, okay? It's the questions and conversations we have about whether an AI tool is safe or can be harmful to me and to other people. So in this way, it invites a conversation. It invites people to talk about specific AI tools and how and when and the consequences it might have for people in general. So that's a simple definition. If you go online and look for AI ethics, you see more serious definitions, but this is one. Now, principles of AI ethics. When you hear someone talk about AI ethics, there are usually 5 key principles that define what AI ethics is. And you saw some of it a little bit when I used Capgemini's definition of AI ethical issues, okay? So these 5 things represent AI ethics. It's fairness, it's accountability. So this is not me saying that this is this, that it's these 5 things. This is what the research has said. This is what companies out there are saying, IBM, Microsoft, and big companies. These are the principles that underline AI ethics. It's fairness. What does fairness mean? It means that there's an absence of favoritism towards any specific group. Accountability means that someone has to be held responsible for the performance of an AI tool. For example, an AI-based vehicle hits someone who is responsible for that. Okay? So that's the idea behind accountability. Someone needs to answer to the way an AI tool behaves. Transparency means that every aspect of building that AI tool has to be transparent. Someone needs to know how the AI tool was built, whether it is all the algorithms that were used, whether it is the data that was used to build the AI tool, and all the systems and software that was used. It has to be traceable. It has to be transparent. Explainability means that when an AI system is used to make a decision that affects someone, it has to be explainable to a normal person, anybody, whether they have technical experience or not. It has to be explainable to individuals. Privacy identifies that there could be concerns over how the data that was used to train the AI system was collected, how it's used, how it's stored, who owns it, and things like that. So these are, and there are other aspects, but these are the main aspects of AI ethics. Now, Carol probably has more information, because now they understand, Carol understands the principles of AI ethics. Carol understands the definition for AI ethics. Carol understands what AI ethics, just ethics means in general. So they might be able to start to ask questions, to have that conversation, to ask questions about whether a tool is beneficial for all or whether a tool could bring some harm to individuals. Let's see. I have a few questions that I've provided that fit that, the principles. Now, these are just straightforward questions that Carol could use, but these questions can be changed. The idea is wherever you are in the development of an AI tool, it might be a consumer-based tool that you're using, these are questions that you could ask. It doesn't matter what tool that is. Fairness, question. An example, I have so many other questions, but these are just a few that I picked out for today. So question. For fairness, is the data representative of the population that that the software is going to address? Accountability, was the AI tool audited? Because usually, nowadays, the idea is when you build a tool, for you to say this tool does not harm, somebody else has to test it. It's not just you saying the tool does not harm anybody. Somebody else has to test it. And the other question that will come up will be, is there a point of contact in your software system that says, hey, if someone does encounter some kind of issue, is there someone in your organization that they can contact to answer questions for them? So that's the accountability. Transparency means that there are questions here. What criteria was used to label the data, for example? What data inputs were used when the AI tool was built? Explainability, a question that you might ask is, does this system provide an explanation that is understandable regardless of whether I have technical knowledge or not? Privacy is there opt-out? Okay, in terms of how data is collected for building the AI and training the AI, is there an opt-out? Is there any availability for people to opt out? Nowadays, all these software tools, they hide the opt-out, right? You might have encountered these in the last week or so with the top social media organizations hiding their opt-out options, right? So these are examples of questions that Carol could start to ask. And you might look at this and say, yeah, but how do I even start to ask these questions? I don't have enough training. I don't understand enough about AI and how it works. And this is where our collective role begins. Number one is for you to start to feel like you can and you should start to ask these questions. You have to, first of all, acknowledge that AI can do harm, okay? The possibility that it can do harm. No technology is neutral. Technology, you probably heard about this, is not neutral. It could, there's a good, there's a bad, there's an in-between. Then also become AI literate. So this is not just ChatGPT prompting or design. This is going to understand a little bit more about how AI truly works, how data is collected, how AI models are built, and how it classifies data, and how it decides the error rate, okay, and all of that. And number three is become a critical AI consumer. When you go online and you download all these wonderful AI tools, do you verify whether these companies have an AI code of conduct? Okay? Before you use them, try and go to their website, look and see if they have any AI code of conduct. If they don't, then be wary of the tool. because that means that they didn't even think about it. They'll be in the, a few slides ago, I talked about the reasons why employees are saying they have all these ethical issues, right? If they didn't even think about it, then that's a problem, all right? And then the other part is, when you see these tools and you start to use them, if you find that an AI tool is working in a way that's unexpected, try report them. Not report like, but report to the organization itself. Let them know something is wrong, because by that, you're giving them an opportunity to fix the problem, okay? And then on the organizational side, consider the consequences of an AI tool. Consider the consequences that it may have to different people. Discuss and ask ethical questions. It might not be big questions, right? It may just start with simple ones that I just highlighted a few slides ago. And then if your organization is using or building an AI tool, encourage an AI code of ethics if you don't already have one, okay? And then the last part is hire an AI ethics officer, or someone who can help to ensure that software systems that are built based on AI are following the ethical framework, okay? Companies have there are so many occasions that I follow these things quite a bit. I don't want to go into so much detail about it, but there are companies that have AI ethics officers, and these officers have helped them get out of trouble a few times, all right? So this slide is just saying, I don't know if you're familiar with the cybersecurity when it started to happen. A big issue with 10, 15 years ago, there was this website called the Wall of Shame, okay, where companies that were breached then, where they would be parked, right? So the idea here from this slide is, don't let your organization end up in a wall of shame, right? So this is a quote by the VP of Google, who said, being responsible in the way that you build and deploy AI is fundamental to good business. Otherwise, it damages the brand, and nobody wants that, right? So these are some websites, OECD.ai, Harm Report by AGL, and a few other sites that what they do is they report these harms. They report these AI incidents. So you might already be familiar with the NIST AI risk management framework. So this was a framework that NIST created about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, where they were suggesting, they gave a framework and they gave suggestions for how to build an AI tool that is ethical, right? So if your organization is building these tools, my suggestion is to use the AI risk management framework to remind your organization of how to build this tool in such a way that it follows the ethical framework. Now, this is when you look at what I have here, I'm comparing what risk management, the NIST risk management, and the EU AI Act, and what they look like, right? So from the EU, it's mandatory that if there's an AI incident, that companies report it, and not just that they report it, they have some legal penalties and they pay fines and all of that, depending on the risk category. But on our side, the NIST does a great job. If you haven't read it and you're in AI, I will suggest you read it. It's, I think it's maybe 60, 70 pages. It might be a little more. But they do a good job of documenting what's obtainable, what's not. But it's all voluntary, all right? And so people have asked me sometimes and said, hey, what do you think is going to happen to AI ethics in the near future? And my response has always been that so this response is, I formulate this from my experience doing cybersecurity research and working in that area. 10, 15 years ago, organizations didn't pay too much attention to cybersecurity. It was relegated to the IT department, right? It wasn't until it started affecting the brand, the bottom line, and people started getting into real trouble, losing their jobs and things like that. That was when leaders started to pay attention to cybersecurity, and it became a thing. So I see AI ethics in the same way, that if companies don't start now to pay attention to these things, there will come a time, it's like I see it as a slowly forming storm that will get to a stage where it starts to become a real issue. People start to, because then it's affecting people's lives, okay? When people can't work because of different issues, it starts to affect them, and then companies that build these tools start to get in different trouble, okay? So this is what I see will happen in the next few years, is that when companies are not paying attention to these things now, what happened with cybersecurity will happen to them. And my time is up, so I think I'm gonna stop right now, but I will say this, that again, it's formulated by my experience in doing cybersecurity research. The idea that just like cybersecurity, if it's not integrated at the very beginning, it's hard to try to fix it at the end, okay? Same thing with AI. If you don't integrate the ethics in it on time and you train a model using data that's biased, all right, it's hard to go back and fix it. It's hard to rebuild. You have to rebuild the whole model, create new data sets, rebuild the model, and so on and so forth. So the idea is start early so that your systems are good. So I'm going to stop right now. That's all I have. I invite you to ask questions if you have questions for me. But otherwise,
we will be able to catch Obi in the back in the event later.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have time for
Yes.
questions.
Oh,
but
sure.
that was amazing. It is so true. Where we begin impacts where we end, right? And that is true for so many different things in life, but also for this technology.